6. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the most amazing homesteading channel on the planet that typically has nothing whatsoever to do with homesteading off the grid. So folks, I'm going to have somewhat of a awkward conversation with you here today, but there's a lot of stuff in here that I really want you to think about, especially if you're over 50. And especially if you're under 50, because this is where your path will lead if you don't make changes. So it was a little more than a year ago. I was having a doctor's appointment at the VA, and the nurse practitioner was in there going over a questionnaire. You know, how often do you exercise? Do you have any pains here? Taking blood pressure, just getting the vitals. And she asked me a very strange question, at least a question that I thought was strange. She said, has anybody borrowed money from you in the past year under the promise of paying it back, but they have not paid it back? And I thought about it, and there was one person. I said, and it wasn't a lot of money by my standards. And I said, well, yeah, there was one. And she prodded. She asked, okay, well, who was it? How much? So I told her who this person was, and how much. And she says, okay, you need to learn how to tell this person no, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, wait a minute, time out. I'm here to this is like a medical checkup, like an annual thing. Why are you asking me this question? Why are we talking about this? And she says to me, she goes, well, because technically now that you're 50 or older, you are considered to be an elder. And even though you're in great shape, great health, still sharp up here. She says, so at the VA and most healthcare professionals everywhere, they're looking out for their elders to make sure they're not being abused in any way. And I said, well, what's that have to do with loaning this person some money that I never got back and that I never will? And she said, well, you've got to understand that's a form of elder abuse. People will often seek out older folks, the elderly, and ask for financial help, or they'll look for loans, and then they'll never pay it back. They take advantage in some way financially, and it's easier to do that with the elderly than it is people who are younger. So I thought, well, that's strange. And so the whole way home after that appointment, I'm thinking, wow, I'm a victim of elder abuse. This person, and I'm not going to mention who this person is because it's not about embarrassing this person. And once you hear the whole story, which I'm going to tell you in 2 minutes or less, which I know is a big deal for me, but you've got to understand the beginning. You've got to understand this story to understand this huge message I'm getting ready to lay down on you, okay? It was not an issue of elder abuse. This is what was going on with that situation. There was somebody from my past who used to be a part of my life, and then for a very long period of time, they were not a part of my life. And I always loved this person, and I always wanted this person to be a part of my life. There's a bug. And so this person and I reconnected after many, many years of having no connection. And I loved it, but I was a bit disheartened. 2 days after reconnecting and spending some time together, they came at me asking for money. Gave me their sob story. It doesn't matter what that was, and they needed X amount of dollars. Well, once upon a time, when I had a relationship with this person, it was just like that. Didn't hear from them as regularly or as often as maybe I would have liked to. And when I did, it was typically because they needed something, that something being money, okay? So when this happened again, just a couple years ago, I knew it wasn't because I was elderly, because I'm over 50. I knew that, okay, this is how that person was back then. But there was a part of me that said, I hope this person's changed, because I would love it if this person changed, and not because I wanted to get the money back. It was because I wanted to have a relationship with this person, a healthy, non-toxic relationship with this person that didn't revolve around me being able to step in and take care of their financial problems when they came up, because they couldn't. Okay? Well, that's not how it worked out. It turns out another very lengthy period of time passed before I heard from this person again. And when I did hear from this person again, it's because they had another financial problem. Okay? And I'm not even going to tell you what the problem was. because I don't want the person out there saying, "Oh, I know he's talking about me." It's one of the hard parts about being a social media content creator. Anytime you make a video about some pretty serious life stuff, everybody, thinks you're talking about them and their situation. And that's not the case. I don't come out here and blast my friends and their toxic marriages or their unsupportive spouses or their the way they might neglect their children or none of that. These are things that pertain to my life and experiences I've had. Okay, folks. So anyway, this person was always stupid with money, could never prioritize their finances as far as like, hey, you pay your bills first. And then you want to splurge, you want to go buy stupid stuff you don't need. Do that with what's left over. You don't do it with, while you've got to keep a roof over your head and keep the lights on, and you have to have food in the pantry. Take care of that, then go play. You know what I mean? This person just never grasped that. So here's the point of this. I was not a victim of elder abuse. What happened to me didn't happen because I was over 50. What happened was because I knowingly made the decision to lend somebody money with 95% of my head telling me you're never going to see this again, but also making sure it wasn't an amount that if I never saw it again, it wouldn't be hurting me. It didn't put me and my family in financial strain, because my heart was hoping that things had changed. But sure enough, nope, didn't hear from the person again for a long time. They wanted me to save them from another problem. And the second time around, I actually did a little bit more. It was a smaller problem. Didn't hear from them for a long time. And I'm saying 6 months a pop. And when they came back that third time, after not having any contact with them for at least 6 months, they wanted me to solve a problem again. And they even worded it at the ending. If I didn't help them with this, no one else would. And they were going to, just the worst case scenario was going to happen. And it wasn't a lot of money. But by this point, I was able to see this person hasn't changed. And I was asking myself the question, did this person actually reinitiate contact with me so they could maybe view me as a sucker again and profit financially from the relationship? And sadly, I have to say the answer was most likely yes. So at that point, I told the person no. I haven't heard from him since, and that was 8 months ago. So here's my point to this. There's a couple of points. We live in a society, at least here in the United States, where almost everybody, it seems, wants to be a victim. They want to be offended. Give you an example. I see a guy at one of the places I go to regularly that looks like Warren Buffett. You know who Warren Buffett is, right? The Oracle of Omaha, self-made billionaire. He's the only member of the Forbes 400 list who created his wealth exclusively by direct equity ownership, like stocks, buying companies directly. Everybody else on that list either inherited their money or invented something like the internet. Or like Bill Gates, Jeffrey Bezos, who created Amazon. Okay, then you got Warren Buffett, who was a mathematical genius, a financial wizard, and after he got out of college back in the 50s, he went around and talked to everybody he knew, and he said, any money you're willing to contribute into a pool, I'm going to just start a fund where I trade the stocks, or I buy the stocks the companies we're going to own in this fund. He collected $100,000 from everybody he knew, and he went to work, and he created what's called Berkshire Hathaway. I haven't checked in forever, but the last time I checked, one share of Berkshire Hathaway Class A stock was like $400,000, I think, for one share. It's never split. He doesn't pay out dividends because he believes and he knows he can make more money with the profits from his businesses than his shareholders could do if he were to give him the dividend. So he keeps all the money and just keeps growing it. So anyway, asked this guy if anybody ever told him he looked like Warren Buffett. He was offended because he took that to mean that I was telling him he looked like a 90-year-old man. And he said, well, no, frankly, I can't say that anybody ever just walked up to me and told me that I look like a 90-year-old man. He was offended. I think very highly of Warren Buffett, and I always have. That's the only reason I made the connection. It's like, oh my God, that guy looks like one of my heroes over there. And I said, well, sir, I'm not saying you look old. What I'm saying is You look like Warren Buffett. And if anything, to me, that would mean you reek success, and shoot, you might be a self-made billionaire for all I know. And then, of course, at that point, he chose to turn around, walk off, and say nothing else to me. But that's an example of how there are so many people in our society. And, of course, I was reminded, that's why I just don't go up and small talk with people I don't know, because so many of them are lunatics. They want to be offended. It's a choice. It's a choice, okay? And it's the same thing with many, let me say this, repeat victims. And my case was a prime example. I was not a victim of elder abuse. I was not a victim of this person getting money from me and not paying it back. I was an accomplice to all of that. Why? Because it's happened before. And listen, we're talking about Warren Buffett and investing. I was a financial planner for 8 years. If you've ever read a prospectus for a mutual fund, there's a disclaimer that states past performance is not indicative of future results. That's true with investments, but that is not true of human beings. When it comes to people, past performance absolutely is 100% indicative of future behaviors. Okay? This is someone that I couldn't trust financially from the past. I gave them a little bit of trust, and they betrayed my trust. I was not a victim. I was not abused because I was over 50. I made the wrong choice. That choice was made with my heart, not my head. And I pride myself on being an objectivist. That's a philosophy created and promoted by, before she passed on, Ayn Rand, the author who wrote The Fountainhead, Atlas Shrugged, great books. Highly recommend both of them. It was illogical for me to say yes to that person because I knew how it was going to return. Okay, when we think logically, we're using our brains. I used my heart, and I thought, I'd like to have a relationship with this person that wasn't just about money. So I got burned again. But I did so as an accomplice because I gave the person the money. If I would have said no and then had that person chosen to end that relationship with me again because I said no, I would have just learned a little bit quicker and it wouldn't have cost me anything. Okay? So, and again, this is a shady area. But if you look at people who are in abusive relationships, if your partner abuses you, you're a victim. You need to get away from that person because they're abusive. They put their hands on you. Maybe they abuse you emotionally, verbally, psychologically. Maybe they're gaslighters. They're constantly gaslighting you, and you're at the point you don't know which way's up and which way's down. When those behaviors first start, you need to get away from that person, and you need to stay away from that person because that person's abusive. Now, if you go back to that person and it happens again, same way with me, lending money to somebody that is just stupid with money and shouldn't have been trusted financially, and who inevitably, I do believe, had the ulterior motive of wanting to be in my life as long as it was financially profitable for this person to be in my life. We're no longer victims when we go back to the abuser. We're the abuser's accomplice. We continue to put ourselves in that position. Okay? Now, I think I can go ahead and after finally 14 minutes of rambling on like a madman, I can get to the meat and the potatoes of this story. And I'm going to do so right now. Okay? I have a wonderful trip coming up this summer. I got several wonderful trips coming up. If you follow this channel, my family and I love to travel. It's what we like to do. Some people are into stuff. They like to accumulate stuff like material items and stuff. That's not us. We're not materialistic. We're not consumeristic. But we like to go to different places, see different things, have different experiences. Okay? My wife, as you know, if you follow the channel, is Filipina. And we've got a huge, loving family in the Philippines. We're going to go see them this summer. We're going to go see them. And it's going to be a very special trip for more reasons than that. So, and I mentioned this a few months ago when it happened. Back in February, while we were actually visiting Key West, Florida for the winter, because we were down there for a couple weeks, It was cold up here. Our wire lines froze. And I said, screw this. Let's go to Key West. My wife said, okay. Jumped in the truck and went. And again, that's something. We are not rich. People will often say, oh, it must be nice being so rich. You can just come and go as you please. Listen, that's not the key to it, because we're not. We just don't have a bunch of debt like most middle class, upper middle class American yuppie types. We don't have debt. If we don't need it, we don't buy it. We don't dip into the equity in our house, which we've never touched, and the house of which is literally within months of being paid off by making multiple mortgage payments when times are good, and not getting behind, and not going in to take out equity to buy stuff I don't need, like a UTV, you know? So we can come and go as we please. We have that freedom. We homeschool our child, so we're not mandated by the public school calendar when we can and can't go where we want. But back in February, we're down in Key West, and one of my son's friends, who's a great kid, a kid I've coached for years in multiple sports, and I'm friends with his parents, he contacted us to let us know that unfortunately one of his other long-time coaches, who was a long-time friend of mine and for a period of a couple of years at one point was my best friend, died. He died. And so that was hard news to take. But as soon as we got off, that kid FaceTimed my son, and I was on the phone with him as he was delivering the message. And so after that, my first thought was, wow, what do you do with this? And I started thinking, wow, what it would have been like to just spend one more afternoon with that guy, one more Saturday morning coaching a game. We didn't have the best record, me and that guy, knowing we were probably going to lose, but hoping we'd win, you know. But it was a great time. And this thought entered my mind. It said, you know what, think of some of your best friends and call one of them, because what if they're next? And so I thought of a buddy of mine who I've actually been friends with longer than any of my current friends. Our friendship goes back to the age of 5. We're both 52 now, so you're looking at a nearly 50-year-long relationship between two early 50-year-old men, right? So I contacted him, and he and I had been in contact. We hadn't been out of contact, but I just started getting a little bit better contact with that guy. So about a month or so ago, he contacted me, and we've been in constant contact. He says, you know what would be fun for us to do this summer? And I said, what's that? And he says, we should take a trip together. Let's just go somewhere like where maybe I've never been, or where we've both never been. I said, okay. So I'm thinking about this, and we're talking about where do we go? You know, Grand Canyon, oh, I've been there. Niagara Falls, just all these different places. And then I have another friend, okay, and I have a friend, and he's older. He's actually the gentleman that introduced me to my wife 15 years ago, and he was my best friend when I lived in the Philippines. And I want to see him again. He's going to turn 81 this summer, okay? So, I mean, how many more opportunities are we going to have? And my other friend from here in America, the U.S., he's never been to the Philippines, so I had this big aha moment. And I thought, why don't we go over there for a couple of weeks? Dearly and Daniel and myself, we can see the Filipino family, be around them a lot, but also me and my two buddies, one of my best ever friends from America and one of my best ever friends from England. My friend over in the Philippines is an Englishman who's an expat, and he's been living over there for 16 years. Man, we'll just resort hop. We'll spend 2 or 3 days and nights at this nice tropical island resort, and then we'll go spend 2 or 3 days at this nice tropical island resort. And these guys are able to do this because, like myself, they're not materialistic. For instance, my buddy, my U.S. friend, he's living down in North Carolina. We grew up together back in Appalachia. He doesn't even have a mortgage. He paid his house off years ago. He was an accountant. He's not stupid with money. If he didn't need stuff, he didn't buy it. He made decent money. He never made good money, but he's been mortgage free since he was about 49 years old. So now he can come and go wherever he wants when he wants. His adult child, who's 24, is not living at home anymore. He didn't make it to where this kid couldn't go out and take care of himself. He made sure this kid does not need to be living with him in his house to survive, right? So I said, hey, I got an idea. It sounds wacky, but you want to go to the Philippines for a couple of weeks? He jumped at it. He's like, yeah, man. He's never been there. He's left the country once. He went to Russia after high school, like a post-high school trip that was, a gift from somebody. So he's all excited. He's got his passport back. It had expired. He renewed it. So we're planning this trip to the Philippines. I got my buddy over in the Philippines on board. He's excited to meet my friend from the U.S. Things are going great. Well, Then a wrench got thrown into it today. My friend in the Philippines is one of the most intelligent human beings I've ever met in my life. He's a very smart man, but he's attracted to toxic women. And the whole time I've known him, any relationship he's been in has always been with someone who was batshit crazy. Yeah, I don't cuss much on this channel. I think I've done it 5 times and that was the 5th. And I have to, I accept people as they are. I don't try to change them. That's a lost cause. I will have to admit that the reason my friend is into toxic women is because, well, in regard to relationships with the opposite sex, he's toxic as well. He's not always loyal. He hasn't always been loyal. It cost him a marriage, cost him one of his pensions. Because the wife got it, the ex-wife over in England got it because of his infidelities. And these are just facts. And my friend, he might even watch this video and he wouldn't be upset with me saying these things because he knows they're true and they're just facts. And he's a logical-minded guy until you put the fairer of the sexes in the picture, and then he kind of loses his mind. But he wouldn't be offended by what I've said because he knows these are just facts. So, he's living with a lovely, beautiful, much younger Filipino lady over there. And my nurse practitioner at the VA would say that he's a victim of elder abuse because she pretty much is living, her and her son is living with him for free. No, she got a place to stay, doesn't have to worry about utilities, doesn't have to worry about food. He provides all that. She comes and goes as she pleases with whomever she pleases. She's scamming older guys on Social Security disability and Social Security retirement in the U.S. She's one of these chat girls. She's got probably 10 guys in the West, thinks she's in love with them and wishes they could come to the Philippines and meet her in person. But guess what? They'll never be able to afford airfare to do so because they're sending her half of what they get every month. Oh, she's making the money, brah. She's raking it in. My man is living with her. So anyway, hey, that's him. That's his life. I always bite my tongue about it. Say whatever. So we were chatting, he and I, and he's telling me about how she's hacked into his messenger. She can read all of his messages, and she's dredging up the past from when he was chatting with girls from 2 years ago, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, you need to just change your passcode or change your password if you don't want her reading your messages because she clearly got access to it. And he said, oh, no. She had him convinced that there's a QR code you can get that you can use to get into anybody else's Facebook Messenger and read their messages. The man's 81. He doesn't understand technology to the degree that you and I do, or hopefully you do. I hope this has not happened to you too. Out there, whoever you are, wherever you are. But I know better. I've worked in social media for almost 20 years. This is my industry. I am one of the godfathers of social media as far as content creation goes. We've got almost 2 million total followers on when you combine YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We do affiliate marketing through Amazon. I'm sponsored by a couple dozen different vendors. You might not see the commercials here on YouTube of some of the products I demo, but some people see them on Hulu. Yeah, I mean, that's how deep our roots run in this industry because we've been there since the beginning, right? But I Googled it just to make sure that I wasn't missing something, okay? Sure enough, there's no QR code that allows any of us to get into anybody else's Facebook messengers. The guy's getting played. He's being had. She's controlling every relationship that he has. Because for now, he's her bread and butter. She's got free room and board for her and her kid. She gets to go out with whomever she wants, whenever she wants. And the door's always open for her. So I messaged him back. I said, that technology that you're being told is being used against you does not exist. I'm afraid that you're partnered with a pathological liar who has somehow gained access to your password. You might want to change it. Well, guess who messages me back? Her, through his messenger, telling me to watch my mouth, among other things. He'll never see that message. I'm sure she deleted it. And I wouldn't be surprised if she hasn't changed his password so he can't even access his own messenger. So I've tried to contact him in other ways that he and I have communicated before in the past. I hope she hasn't breached those avenues of communication as well, and I hope he gets a message from me so we can stay in contact. Otherwise, I stand the chance of never talking to my friend again who introduced me to Dearly. If it wasn't for this guy, Daniel wouldn't exist, our son. So we're driving into the gym today, and we were talking about maybe not taking this trip, and Dearly said to me, she goes, well, maybe you and Jonathan, said his name, hey, whatever, dude, one of my best friends for life, known each other 50 years, maybe you and Jonathan should go somewhere else. And I said no. I said, we're still going to the Philippines. She said, still? What if you don't hear back from Ray? I'll just go ahead and say his name too. And I reminded her of a meme we post on our Facebook page, Sick Twisted Humor. Sometimes we run it as a reel. Depends on how Facebook's paying us. Right now they're paying us for reels, so we're doing all reels. Because they go back and forth. When they start paying us for memes, then we'll do memes. I mean, even an old mutt stray dog knows to go where he's fed, right? Okay? So, but it says this. It says, I am willing to lose any relationship, be it with a friend or a family member, to protect my peace and serenity and my well-being and my state of mind. That's true. I love my friend Ray. We call each other bro because he's like a brother, even though he's a couple of years older than me. He's my big brother and I'm his little brother. So my plan is, me and my friend Jonathan and my family, we're going to the Philippines and we're having a great time. And Jonathan and I are going to resort hop. We're going to go to the resorts that would cost you $1,000 a night in the United States. And that's an honest to God number, where we can zip line from one island to the other, where we can swim with the whales, where we can snorkel with the whales, where we can scuba dive down into the beautiful reefs of the Philippine Islands and see tropical fish like you couldn't imagine exist. We're going to dine like kings every night. And we're going to do all this, by the way, over there for about $100 a day. Yeah. $1 is equal to like 55 of their pesos, but the real rate of return is about 4 to 1. Unless you travel luxuriously, then it's 10 to 1. You can literally stay at a place over there for $100 a day. That includes your food, your drinks, your activities. At the equivalency of a place that you'd pay $1,000 to $1,500 a day for here in the U.S. We're going to do that. And I told my wife Dearly, if Ray chooses to join us, if he's able to figure out how to have communication with me past the barrier of that toxic woman who is kind of jumped in and taken over his life, he's more than welcome. But he will be told that she's not welcome because he's my friend, not her. And I would never recommend he breaks up with her. I would never step in on anybody else's relationship. But I will protect my peace, my serenity, my level of ease, emotionally and mentally, because I'm not going to let somebody like that ruin the good time I'm going to have with my other friend or that friend or my family. But it brought me back to the way I originally opened this conversation. Is he being a victim of elder abuse? At this point, I would have to say no, even though he's 81. Basically, he's experiencing a situation where, like we've all heard it said, it all comes home to roost. We all make choices. We choose who we partner with. That's why I used to have, in the U.S., guys would come to me, they'd complain about their wives. I'd just cut them off. I'm like, dude, I don't have to worry about that because I don't have those problems. Now, I did in my first marriage, and I've told people that as well. I'm like, yeah, I used to deal with that in my first marriage. And they're like, what'd you do? How'd you handle it? I was like, I got a divorce. It was a miserable relationship. And I wasn't any better to her than she was to me because we were two people that just mixed like oil and vinegar, fire or gas and water. But now I'm with someone who's not toxic, who's not abusive, who doesn't view children as a paycheck. One of the vows we took when Dearly and I got married, we wrote out our own vows. I made her take the vow that should our marriage end, should our relationship spoil, she will always put our son's well-being first before, her own desire to maybe make me feel pain or to hurt me. Okay? And she agreed to that, and she took that vow. And that's when I knew that I had the right woman. Listen, no parent who truly loves their children would ever try to make their children hate their other parent. That's just a fact. Okay? So, no, I don't feel that I need to contact anybody to say, hey, my buddy Ray's being taken advantage of. And they wouldn't help him anyway. He's in the Philippines. They'd laugh and they'd high-five the girl for doing it. They'd say, there you go, girl. You got you a foreigner on the hook. And those are just facts. Now, not everybody over there does that. There's just an awful lot of them. And if you find yourself in that situation, you're not going to get any help. Okay? So, folks, think about some relationships you might not be too happy about. Think about some situations you're in that are making you uncomfortable. If your first go-to is to claim that you're a victim, I want you to stop. Because here's the problem with being a victim. When you truly are a victim, you have no control over your situation because you really are a victim. Flood victims. You're asleep in your house at night. The clouds open up on top of the mountain above you. You have a big old golly washer and all the water comes down and rushes and tears down your house and takes you out and you die. You're a victim, okay? But if you're with someone who cheats on you regularly and you continue to take him back after every infidelity, you're not a victim. You're an accomplice. If you continue to loan money to people that never pay it back to you, we're not victims. We're accomplices. If somebody is physically assaulting you regularly and you continue to go back so they can do it again, you're not a victim. You're an accomplice. The good news is, folks, is that until the day that we take our last breath, we can choose to make different choices. We can choose to no longer be an accomplice or be a victim of the next person because we don't go right back out and get in a relationship with another toxic abuser. No, we change the way we do things. Change. Different choices, different decisions. We get out of bad relationships. We only go into good ones. And if somebody out there is toxic, we don't allow them in our circle. We just do not allow them to breach our space. We truly do control our own destinies, folks. And the ability to do so begins with making those different decisions, making different choices. But you first have got to stop viewing it as if you're the victim. I hope you all got something out of this. See you for more next time. From the most awesomest homesteading channel on the planet, typically doesn't have anything to do with homesteading. Homesteading off the grid. Be good to each other out there, but most importantly, be good to yourself.